Namaste, sir. Welcome back to the second episode of SAMEEKSHA. And in our previous conversation, we discussed a lot of things about the value of culture in our tradition, how music has, Carnatic music particularly, has changed over the years. And you shared your experiences, of interacting and performing with great musicians. So continuing that conversation, the first question that I would like to pose is, you are a percussionist, a Laya Vidwan. So I would like to ask you, how do you perceive a composition, or what do you feel is the role of Sahitya, for a Laya Vidwan? Does it really matter to him? Does he have to pay attention to the nuances of the Sahitya? Because the general belief is that you learn a tala and you learn the accompaniment for a particular tala. So whether the singer is singing Telisi Ramachintana, or whether he's singing Himagiri Tanaye, or he's singing Srinatha Adi Guru Bho Jayati, it's all in Adi Tala, so it doesn't matter. So do you see there should be a difference in approach from the point of view of a Laya Vidwan when he accompanies different kritis? Does Sahitya play a role? Does even Raga play a role? And what is the role of the bhava of the composition? Totally from a Laya perspective, my question.
Kumar is far better equipped to answer this question than I am. But when I am sitting and performing with him or even listening to him, I am enchanted by the way he approaches different compositions. It may be the same Aditala or the same Rupakatala, but if you take in Rupakatala Shobilu Saptaswara, or then Jnanamusagarada, or any Kirtana in Begada, or a Ramani Samanamevaru, the Mridangam accompaniment is not the same in all the kritis.
Right.
So there is an element where the Mridangam follows the Sahitya, and that is really the embellishment, that is the beautifying aspect of the Mridangam. So there are any number of references to Palgad Mani Iyer for his ability to understand the composition and perform exactly according to that. In fact, there is a very humorous anecdote where somebody told Palgad Mani Iyer after a concert with Ariyakudi that he played Chakani Raja on the Mridangam. And Ariyakudi took affront. He said, how could he play Chakani Raja if I had not sung it? I have sung it, so he has only accompanied me. So there was, of course, it was an exchange, but the fact is that the embellishment by the Mridangam depends on the composition, depends on the pace of the tala, depends upon the particular vocalist, on the sangatis that he sings. Every concert, every kirtana sung repeatedly, every iteration is a different experience. Mm-hmm. So there is also the element of manodharma. So manodharma touches the Mridangam Vidman as much as the vocalist or the violinist. So they cannot be separated. Definitely there is a dependence on the composition, on the Sahitya. And you can actually hear the composition being played on the Mridangam if you pay enough attention to it and are tuned to that frequency. So the Sahitya makes a big difference. And
what would be your advice for? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I answered that part.
What would be your piece of advice for a young aspiring Laya Vidwan when it comes to accompaniment techniques, particularly from this point of view? Does he have to put his mind into the Sahitya bhava, the import of the composer? What is he trying to say there? There are compositions where Tyagaraja has
certainly,
completely surrendered to Lord Rama, and there are certain other compositions where he takes maximum liberty, and he goes about dealing with Rama just like a casual, there are compositions where he has cried before Rama, and compositions where he describes his beauty, compositions where he describes his valor and his different qualities. So each of them have different bhavas, and Dikshita's compositions come with different bhava. So what should be the approach of a Laya Vidwan, whether it is Mridangam or Ghata or Khanjira or whatever? How should they look at it, and how should they approach it? Does it require is it another branch of study which requires some special attention, and what is it that needs to be done?
I'll start my answer with another example given by Shivaraman sir, Kumar's guru.
Okay.
He was referring to his innumerable performances with KVN sir, and he said in one concert in Mysore, he was singing Krishnani Begane Baro, and the experience was ethereal. It was out of the world, and at a certain point of time, Shivaraman sir stopped playing. I let him get immersed in the Krishnanubhav, and I was only providing the Teka of the Mishra Chapu, doing nothing more than that. At that point of time, that was all I had to do as a Mridangam accompanist. I have performed for the same Krishnani Begane Baro by the same KVN several times, but on that occasion, that was the experience. That was the ecstasy that both of us experienced, and we were both immersed. We felt Laya in that moment, in that act of pausing, or in that act of refraining from playing anything more. That comes with experience. That comes with getting involved in the music and subconsciously registering it. My own experiences, my very early concert experience was at the Gayana Samaja. My mother used to take me there, and specifically, my interest was in listening to the Mridangam. So in those times, also I had the good fortune of listening to Palgatmani Ayarwal. And of course, Shivaraman sir, Raghu sir, my own guru. So I used to fall asleep for the most of the concert when I was 5 or 6 years old. And my mother would wake me up for the Sani. But even in that process, music registered in my mind. That was the Kelvi part, the real Shravanam part of the music experience. And that made a huge impact. So even today, when I perform in concerts, very often I get so involved in the sahityam, in the composition itself, that I am unconsciously stop playing sometimes. This happens. So that's the kind of involvement that is required, and essentially the Mridangam accompaniment or the Laya accompaniment has to enhance the music, and that has always to be the goal of the percussionist. And it is only the artists who have understood this and practiced this committedly. They are the ones who are they are a class apart from the rest of the.
Very true, and it shows in their playing. It shows in their accompaniment.
Shows in their playing.
Yeah. So that takes me to another connected question. Normally, we consider music, having two entities, the melody and the rhythm. The melodic aspect and the rhythmic aspect together, make up music. In our tradition, we call it the raga aspect and the laya aspect. Probably, melody and rhythm are not equivalents to raga and laya. But for the lack of a better term, I am forced to use melody and rhythm here. So in a concert, it so happens I'm not generalizing here, but sometimes it so happens that when the main artist or I don't want to use the term main artist, when the vocalist is singing, let's say a raga, the percussion department is sometimes not connected. They are not paying attention. They are totally disconnected. They're not listening, or they are doing some kanak in their with their fingers, and there's absolutely no connect there. And the same thing applies when the Taniyavartanam is going on, or when it comes to the nuances, the laya nuances. The melodic department, the vocalist or the violinist, they don't seem to pay attention, or they just want to do it as a formality. Tani has to be a part of the concert, so we are just going about it, and they mechanically they put the talam and they are done with it. Okay, so what do you think? Do you look at melody and rhythm, independent of each other? Or because I believe melody cannot exist without rhythm, and rhythm cannot exist without melody. It's an integrated whole. So, what is your opinion on that? And how do you think our artists should change their perspective about this to give a wholesome concert experience to the listener? What is it that needs to be improved in this area?
You're absolutely right. Melody and rhythm, if we use English words, they are inseparable. I was really racking my brains for an answer to this question, and just looked up the dictionary definitions. Melody is a rhythmic succession of single tones organized as an aesthetic whole. So,
okay.
In melody, there is already rhythm. And rhythm is an ordered, recurrent alternation of strong and weak elements in the flow of sound and silence. It is the aspect of music comprising all the elements, such as accent, meter, and tempo. So they are absolutely inseparable. And again, the aspect of Mridangam playing that set apart the great was the experience of the melody, the gumki of Mani Ayarwal, or the gambhirium of Payani, or the scintillating tone, the nadam of Payani.
And the chapu of Shivaraman sir.
The chapu of Shivaraman sir, or the sarvalagu of Ramabhadran sir.
Ramabhadran sir.
These are, yeah. And my own guru used to always emphasize, the fact that the percussion must never be obtrusive or interfere with the musician's manodharma. And the laya aspect is only there to sustain, to maintain the tempo of the kriti, to maintain the kala pramana, to help the main musician maintain his kala pramana. But the melody aspect is such a big part of the percussion component of the music. So it's extremely important. And again, I have several memories of concerts where great Mridangam Vidwans have carried the whole concert on their shoulders with the quality of their playing, with the melody that they have produced. And
no doubt.
Very often they inspire the vocalists to sing even better. So it is absolutely teamwork on the stage, and they have to go together. And yes, there is a lot of proclivity for the kanak aspect, for the numbers aspect. It's exciting. It's a lot of work for the grey matter. It's enthralling a lot of listeners. But I think with age and experience, that will change. I think people will settle down. And one thing that main artists must do is to listen to a lot of music of different artists, and also listen to a lot of Mridangam artists who are accompanying in different ways, and combine the best of that. So the Kelvi Jnanam can never be overemphasized. But happily, I noticed that this is really happening with the younger generation. I think they pay a lot of attention to concert performances, on improving themselves, on developing new techniques. I think there is a lot of interest and commitment to doing this. But the emphasis on the Anubhavam, on the pauses in the rhythm are as essential as the playing itself.
Yes.
The silence, the nishabdam at certain moment. And there is no discounting the importance of manodharma in our music. Manodharma of the musician, manodharma of the rasika. And it's a rare experience when both match, when both coincide.
Very true. That's a very interesting point you mentioned about manodharma of the rasika. Because only when that receptivity is there on the other side can music really make an impact. Very true. So we were in our previous video, we were talking about culture and traditional values and things like that. And you also mentioned, our music has a rich legacy, and it has been passed down from generations. It has a history of hundreds and thousands of years. So we as Carnatic musicians, we belong to a system. It's a classical form of art with a long history, and there is a historical background, there is an evolution, and there is an aspect of tradition which we need to adhere to. So do you feel at any point of time this aspect of tradition in our music, it's an impediment to the artist's creativity or imagination? Does it restrict him? Is it regressive? Because we normally come across these terms in the modern world. You have to break the tradition, and you have to be a rebel, and things like that. Is there really a need to do away with tradition, or does tradition have no value at all? What is your take on that?
Definitely not. It is tradition that has sustained our music over the centuries. Tradition is an essential part of music, of preserving it for posterity. So, if you see creativity as an end in itself, then Carnatic music is not the place for it.
Wow.
You can be creative in millions of ways within the traditional format of Carnatic music. As I said before, the same Shankarabharanam you sing 100 times, it sounds different. The same Shankarabharanam sung by hundreds of artists, you get a lot of variety. It's not only the basics for us, it's the emphasis, it's the intonation, the timbre of the voice of the musician. Everything makes so much difference to the overall experience. So, Mridangam Vidwans or Laya Vidwans have been playing for the same Adi Talam for centuries. Right?
Yes.
Doesn't mean that you change the construct of the Adi Tala, make it creative. You say one beat, and Chaturushanadai, another beat, and Drushanadai, another beat, and Pandanadai. Yes, you can do your creative exercises for refreshing the brain, for developing the cerebral power. But that is not an end in itself. That ultimately has to lead to a better music experience. So tradition definitely does not come in the way of creativity. And I don't subscribe to the view that creativity takes priority over tradition. Tradition for me is always foremost. I may sound old-fashioned, I may sound conservative, but our music is all about tradition. It has to be.
Thank you so much for that, perspective, because somebody who's sticking on to tradition is, as you said, is labeled as backward, conservative, regressive. All kinds of labeling is done, old-fashioned. or someone with limited musical capacity. He's not able to go beyond that, and that's why he's sticking on to tradition. We normally come across these kind of narratives. But Carnatic music is one of
we
those
don't
very...
have to be overly worried about it.
Yes, I know. I think Carnatic music is one such a very unique system of music where there is ample scope for creativity within the framework of tradition. And that is what makes Carnatic music so different and special. Is it not? That is an important thing to be recognized, and it has to be sustained. It has to be preserved.
Just to bring another dimension to that question, who are the musicians of the past who are most remembered, most revered, and most followed or adored today? Are they the ones who stuck with tradition and preserve tradition, or are they the ones who try to be creative and traverse a different path?
Right.
Who are the musicians? We can just look back at the long list of musicians who are so popular, so well remembered even to this day. I am a firm believer in Mahajano Yena Gata.
Yes. Yeah, we get our answers there. Yes.
Yeah. So I could be called old-fashioned. I could be called backward, regressive, whatever. But little do I care about that. We don't have to be overly worried about that. This is our point of view, and I think it's time-tested.
Yes, it's because I've even heard people say that Carnatic music is not dynamic enough. It has become stagnant, and the reason that's given is Tyagaraja Kritis, Dikshita Kritis, compositions of the Trinity, which were composed 250 years ago, compositions of Purandaradasa, which was composed 500 years ago, are still being sung today. So it is not dynamic. So we need to do something different. These kind of arguments come up. Does it make any sense to say that just because we are singing something which was composed several hundreds of years ago, does it mean that Carnatic music as a system is not dynamic at all? Or is it so...
On the other hand, we have to be proud of the fact that something that was created or that something that evolved so many centuries ago is still holding so much charm, so much allure for the listeners and the performers. We have to be proud of that fact.
Correct.
And you can't wish away Tyagaraja, you can't wish away Dikshita. There is a huge dependence on the Trinity and all those composers. But having said that, it doesn't mean that other composers been able to make a mark on the system. There have been any number of pre-Trinity and post-Trinity composers whose compositions are also equally valued. Ultimately, the real test of the worth of the compositions is how much it appeals to the practitioners of music and to the patrons of music or the connoisseurs of music. And that will decide whether we have to still live with Tyagaraja and Dikshita or not.
And if it really has that intrinsic worth, it will stand the test of time. It will stand on its own.
And it has.
Yes, it has. It has stood, and it will stand in future too. Yes.
And that is the template, the format on which all other post Trinity era composers have formulated their own composition. They have had to use that as a reference. There are so many elements of our music which are inherent in the compositions of the Trinity, which cannot be probably reproduced in full by later contemporary composers. Maybe there are, we never know, but probably they have not come to light. There are any number of compositions, excellent gems of compositions by later composers, but who has given us a huge repository of kirtanas and in in the same period, three contemporary composers providing such a variety of composition. If you take Tyagaraja, predominantly the bhakti element, the spontaneity of his music, and so much importance for Naraval and, Arangati singing.
Scope for Naraval and Manoj. Yes.
Much more structured, more scholastic, more academic, but so much of the science of music. Shama Shastri in a different world of his own.
Correct.
Probably of all the really niche music of the three, Shama Shastri is probably the most niche, if I may use that term. But still, you can't wish away the worth, the value of that period and of the tradition.
Right.
Of course, there have been many, many more composers, but they have not been able to have the kind of overwhelming influence or impact that the Trinity have had. We cannot deny that fact.
Right. Another connected question is, on the lines of tradition, creativity, and experimentation. So these days we see, an experiment spree that is going on. People are going all out to experiment. No doubt, experimentation, creativity, imagination is the crux of any art form. Art is basically a creative expression. Nobody can deny that. But as Carnatic musicians who belong to a traditional genre of music, do we have a responsibility as well? And in what way can we make sure that we do justice to the core values of our music and we don't dilute it?
There is no denying the responsibility of the practitioners of music to maintain and sustain the tradition. But I do not for a moment want to suggest that those who indulge in creative exercise, in experimentation, are shirking their responsibility for tradition. I'm sure they're conscious of their responsibility for tradition, for maintaining the hoary norms of our music. But they're well within their right to try and create something, a new experience, to enrich the experience, as long as it is within the stipulated norms of our music. Why do we have Sangeeta Shastra? Probably there is no other art form in any other civilization which has a Shastra for culture.
Very true.
We have to remain within what the Shastras ordain for us. That is important. Otherwise, we will perish.
Very true.
To that extent, there is a responsibility. Dharma rakshati rakshati.
Yeah, that applies to music as well. Yes. So that brings me to the last question for today. You are someone who has been a regular performer for several decades, and you also have a corporate career, and you managed it excellently well. So I would know, did you have to face any challenges in your corporate front, in your professional front, to be accepted and yet be what you are? Did you have to face any challenges in maintaining your traditional values, not giving up on tradition, not giving up on your conservative views? What do you have to say about that? Can you share some of your experiences?
First of all, I cannot claim to have managed it well. I do have my regrets and my doubts about how well I have managed it. But definitely, being a musician has earned me respect in my workplace. I've had some wonderful experiences. There was a very, very senior management member in my organization when I was still new in the organization. One day he came seeking me out in my workplace and came and said, "Hey, I watched you on television yesterday. I'm so proud of you." And he was somebody who didn't have any understanding of Carnatic music because he belonged to a different community. But he felt a sense of pride in having a colleague, somebody in his organization who was a musician and who was, seen in public on television. For him, that was a matter of great pride. And more than that, he was very appreciative of the fact that I was pursuing a cultural activity, and he encouraged me to do that. This kind of experience I have had plenty. But I've also had the experience that people have said, all right, it's all very well if you have a concert and you want to go early, but sorry, your work here, your professional responsibilities are a priority. So you decide for yours. So there have been discouraging tendencies as well. And at a certain point in my career, I had to sacrifice my music career or my inclination towards music. So for a prolonged period, it did happen. And looking back, I have regrets about that. I have had also such an experience. But overall, the amount of the respect that it creates and the goodwill and the affection that it creates is something to be experienced. I think the positive aspect
is more
bigger than the negative aspect. Yes, it has been difficult to balance. Probably I have lost a few miles in my professional career also because I have made that conscious decision. I will only go so far. I will probably step out of the rat race as far as the professional career is concerned because I want also to balance my music career. But maybe I could have done it better, a lot better. That's how it has been so far. But yes, for younger people who are in a similar position, there have been far more famous examples of people who have managed their professional and cultural careers exceedingly well. I think the key aspect is the management of time. So
right.
One has to value time. It's a precious commodity.
Right.
Utilizing the time to the full is, I think, extremely important. I cannot claim to have done that very successfully. But there are a lot of youngsters who are doing that. There are plenty of brilliant musicians, very accomplished musicians who are also pursuing big careers, very lucrative careers, and they're doing quite well. But yes, at some point of time, one has to take the call as to which is more important, what their priority is, and follow one's heart as far as this is concerned. And it is not easy to maintain the same level of quality in both areas simultaneously for a prolonged period. Also, going back to the earlier topic that I was referring to about the intensity of the music experience going down, is probably in part due to the fact that there are distractions, there are other priorities in life. It's a different time and age, and people have to manage their lives. So that could be a major factor. But I think one has to follow one's heart.
Of course. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your candid thoughts, and it was wonderful doing this conversation with you, and I learned so much in the process, and you shared so many of your insights and opinions about various things, which will definitely add a lot of value to the system of Carnatic music, to the understanding of the system of Carnatic music, of a musician as well as of a Rasika. So thank you so much, and I hope to do many more such sessions with you in future. We will stay connected, sir.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with both you and Kumar. Wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope I've added some value.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. Thank you. Namaste.